Wow, you people were born when I played. That's why I show the video now. Some people weren't born. Seriously. Hopefully you enjoy the video. I tell people that's my life story. You know, it's 4 minutes long. I live next door to my dad. I got some interesting stories about my father. My dad's 91 years old, and I live next door to him, and he comes over and he watches that tape like it's live. I said, Dad, let it go, it's over. I brought him to see the movie Miracle. I'm not sure how many people here have seen it. If you haven't seen it, get a copy of the DVD because we get a percentage of the sales. No, I'm kidding. Disney got everything. But I brought my dad to the movie, and I'm sitting there, and I'm watching him, and he's jumping up and down, and he's covering his eyes. And finally, I looked at him. I said, relax, we win. You know, he got a little too caught up in it. I played my hockey, and I know a lot of universities here and colleges. I played my hockey at Boston University, where I currently work. I've been there 20 years in the development office. And I have 4 sisters and a brother. And every game, my mom, my dad, and my 4 sisters and a brother would go to the game. And my dad knew nothing about ice hockey. He never played ice hockey. He never skated. He was totally clueless. But as I developed as a player, my father became an expert in hockey. And I remember after every game, my mom and dad and 4 sisters and a brother would wait for me in one part of the arena. Well, this particular game, we had won 5-2, but I had a breakaway during the game, and I missed the breakaway. Happy we had won, disappointed I didn't score a goal when I could have. So I met him after the game, and I said, that was a pretty good game. And my dad said, yeah, you guys played pretty well. I said, that goalie made a really nice save in that breakaway. And he looked at me, and he said, you should have deked the goalie. And I said, what? He said, you should have deked the goalie. Now, deking the goalie is when you fake the goalie out. I just went in and shot the puck. I said, really? I said, what does deke mean? He goes, I don't know, but the guy behind me told me you should have deked the goalie. So I learned, don't listen to my father about ice hockey. But I think you'll find that he taught me many, many more valuable lessons in life. And I think when I look back on the success that I had as an athlete and the teams that I played on, a lot of it was the values and the work ethic my father kind of instilled in me. And which gets me, I guess, obviously to my opportunity to be here today and at this luncheon and kind of tell our story. And that's basically what it is for me. It's a story. What enabled a group of athletes to accomplish something that nobody in the world thought we could accomplish. When I say nobody in the world, trust me, nobody in the world thought we could win a medal, let alone the gold medal. But over the years, I've also found that there's no doubt in my mind there's a direct correlation between the goals and objectives of people in business, people at universities, colleges, and the same goals and objectives that we as a hockey team had, and it's to be the best and to be successful. So what enabled this team to accomplish this? What enabled our team to do something that was so special? Some people in this room, as I said earlier, might have heard about what happened in 1980. Some of you might have watched it, and you saw an end result. But what enables the end result to happen? I can go look at your schools and your programs and see some great things that happen. But what enables them to happen? How did this whole thing come together? So what I like to do is tell people, I'm going to bring you back to the beginning and explain it so you get a better understanding of how and why we were able to accomplish what we accomplished. So by bringing it back to the beginning, I want you to understand that prior to the Olympic Games, what the United States used to do is take college hockey players, because you couldn't be a professional then, and you would practice for a week or 2 weeks, and you'd go to the Olympic Games, and you'd compete against these countries who were professionals. Some of these guys played together 4 years, 8 years, and in the Soviets' case, some of these guys played together for 12 years. Hockey's a team sport. And when you prepare for only 2 weeks against countries that have been preparing for years, it's hard to be competitive. The second thing that's very different is the Olympic Games is played on a bigger sheet of ice. It's wider and it's longer. It's a totally different hockey game. We don't have rinks like that at this point when we were playing that were Olympic sheets of ice. So one, you're only practicing together for a short period of time. You go to the Olympic Games, it's played on a bigger sheet of ice. By the time you get adjusted to each other, by the time you get adjusted to the surface, you're basically already behind the 8 ball. Well, Herb Brooks was our coach, and he said, we're going to do things differently. We're going to train differently. We're going to prepare differently. And it's like business. If things aren't working well, don't be afraid to change. Don't be afraid to try something different. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. So Herb said we're going to do things differently. First thing we're going to do is we're going to train for 6 months. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to change the way we play. We're going to learn the European style of hockey, which is a very different game because of the bigger and wider rinks. And people said to Herb Brooks, you can't teach in 6 months what the Europeans have done their whole life. And in typical Herb Brooks fashion, he said, I can and we will. Well, the next thing they did, they had tryouts all around the country. Anybody who was an amateur and wanted to try out for the 80 Olympic team could. So they had tryouts all around the country, and they narrowed it down to 68 players. 68 of us in July went to Colorado Springs, and we competed against each other in a 2-week period. In the movie Miracle, they had the team pick them one day. Trust me, it was 2 weeks. So 2 weeks, we sit and we compete against each other, and Herb Brooks is in the stands, and he's evaluating the players, and finally the tryouts are over. And we're in this kind of small room, and 68 players are sitting in the room, and Herb said, if I call your name, please stay. If I don't, thanks for coming. And I remember the first name he called was Ken Morrow. And I was sitting there thinking, God, I hope this isn't alphabetical, you know. So more names are called, and eventually I'm called. 26 of us. 26 players made up the 80 Olympic team. And the reason I tell you that is because 6 players are going to get cut throughout the course of our training.